The note said, "Keep your blinds closed. Now I'm trapped in a living reflection. Psychological drama." They warned me about the ninth floor before I moved in. Old women who lived downstairs crossed themselves whenever the elevator paused on it. The maintenance man, a hunched shadow who smelled of grease and mildew, said with a whisper, "Keep your windows closed after dark." That's all I'll tell you. I thought it was superstition, the kind of nonsense older buildings breed like mold in their walls. But I should have listened. The apartment was too cheap for its location. Top floor, quiet neighbors, hardwood floors that creaked with age but held a strange elegance in their moans. 9F was the last unit in the hallway, its door painted over too many times. The peaceful fog like a cataract. There was something comforting about its imperfection. I was a lonely man looking to disappear. The ninth floor offered silence, anonymity, and an unspoken promise that nobody would ask questions. My first few days were ordinary. I arranged my books by author's death date, a habit I picked up during a stretch of solitude that lasted years. The building creaked and groaned with weather. Radiators hissed. Pipes knocked like someone was always waking up in the walls. Typical old building behavior. But then the first note came. Slipped under my door, no name, no handwriting. Just block letters printed from an old inkjet printer. KEPOURBOINDSCO SIDTUNGHT. Dionati, logo OOT. I laughed. Some bored prankster, I assumed. Maybe one of the other tenants was bored or testing the new guy. I didn't obey it, of course. That night I sat with my blinds half open, sipping tea, watching the city bruise itself into twilight. The building across the street lit up in squares like a checkerboard, each window revealing its own little drama. I fell asleep on the couch. At 3:17 a.m. I woke without knowing why. The lights in the hallway flickered outside my door. My living room felt colder than it should have. That's when I noticed something strange. The blinds were completely open. I hadn't touched them. I know I hadn't. I live alone. My tea mug, which had been half full, was empty and placed upside down on the bookshelf. I don't drink fast. I don't place cups like that. Something was off. I closed the blinds, locked the windows, tried to shake it off. Maybe I did it in my sleep. That's what I told myself. The next morning, another note under the door, "Don't make ITQROS. Keep your byline des COS." My heart thudded in my chest. I knocked on the neighbor's door. No answer. The next door. Still nothing. In fact, in all my time there, I hadn't seen another person on the floor. No footsteps in the hallway. No elevator dings. No mail being slipped in other boxes. It was like the ninth floor was mine alone. The building directory listed the other apartments as occupied. But by whom? I asked the doorman downstairs, casually, if anyone had moved out recently from the ninth. He gave me a look like I'd asked him to list the dead. "Don't go bothering folks up there." He muttered and walked away. That night I locked the windows, bolted the door, and shut the blinds tight. Still, I couldn't sleep. At 2:43 a.m., I heard the blinds open again. That gentle metallic sound, like a whisper being unzipped. I turned on the lights. Empty room. Blinds fully raised. Streetlight pooling into my carpet. I sat on the floor until morning. The third note didn't come. Instead, I saw something new in the mirror. It didn't follow me. I raised my right hand. My reflection raised the left. I leaned in. It leaned out. I smiled. It stared. Then it blinked. I didn't. I threw a sheet over the mirror. Called in sick to work. Spent the whole day researching the building, trying to find anything. Complaints, news articles, online forums. There was nothing. It was like 9F didn't exist before I moved in. No record of previous tenants. No photos. No reviews. Like the apartment had been waiting, dormant. I went downstairs to the mailboxes, checked mine. Inside was a key I didn't recognize. Old brass. A tag etched with only one word, Bassement. I stood in front of the elevator for a long time. The descent felt slower than usual. Like the air got thicker the farther down I went. The basement was colder than the building should allow. Lights flickered weakly above, their glow more shadow than illumination. I walked past the laundry machines and the storage cages until I found an old, rusted door at the far end. The key fit perfectly. The room inside was lined with monitors, grainy black and white screens showing the view from every window on the ninth floor, except none of them showed the city. They showed people. Sleeping. Sitting, staring directly into the lens, sometimes multiple copies of the same person. I saw myself, on one screen, sitting on my couch, on another, standing in the kitchen. On a third, I was at the mirror. But this version didn't have a reflection. It had something else behind it. Watching, breathing. I stepped back, heart clawing at my chest. Something buzzed in the ceiling above, a gentle electric hum, and one by one, the screens shut off until only one remained, my apartment empty, blinds wide open. Then movement. a figure walked into view, sat in my armchair. I thought at first it was me, but it wasn't. The gestures were wrong, slightly off, like someone impersonating me with just enough memory to fake it. I ran, took the stairs, 7th floor. 8th, 9th, my key didn't work. The doorknob was gone, just a flat surface where the lock should be. Behind me, the hallway lights began to flicker. I turned slowly. All the doors were open. Every apartment, but they weren't rooms inside. Only darkness like caves without end. The walls breathed. I swear they did. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number: "You're not supposed to be awake." Then another: "Sleep now. Let it take your place." I threw the phone down and ran down the stairs. But no matter how many flights I descended, I stayed on the 9th floor. Over and over. Same hallway, same peeling wallpaper, same broken sconce near 9B. It had looped. I was trapped. I sat by my doorless apartment until the lights stopped flickering. Time passed. I slept. When I woke up, I was back inside. The door had returned. The blinds were down. My reflection moved with me. Everything looked normal. But I knew it wasn't. The apartment had reset. Or worse, it had accepted me. That night I left the blinds shut, but I could feel it on the other side, watching, mimicking, waiting for me to forget. And the worst part, I couldn't remember if I was the one who had walked out or the one who had stayed in. The days that followed melted into a strange rhythm, a kind of numb routine shaped by fear and denial. I stopped asking questions. I no longer checked the hallway or responded to knocks, though they came more often now. Soft, insistent, sometimes in patterns like someone tapping Morse code into my nerves. I ignored them all. I unplugged the TV, muted my phone, stuffed a towel under the front door to block out the hall light that flickered like it was breathing in Morse too. But the mirror I couldn't avoid. Covered. Sure, wrapped in a dark sheet and duct, taped at the edges like it could leak, but it made sounds at night. Faint rustling like fabric against skin. Once I heard humming. My own voice. A lullaby I hadn't sung since childhood, and definitely not allowed in this apartment. And the worst, sometimes the sheet would be slightly crooked in the morning. Not torn. Just off by a single corner, peeled back like something had peeked out. I bought black tape and sealed it tighter. Nailed the frame to the wall for good measure, but still it persisted. By the end of the week, my food tasted off. Water was metallic. Even my breath seemed different. I stopped seeing my face in windows. Only silhouettes that paused a second too long when I turned away. The elevator stopped working, or maybe it didn't. I hadn't dared use it since the night I found the basement. My legs ached from the stairs, but I didn't trust mechanical movement anymore. Everything with a motor in this building felt like it had its own mind now, waiting to take me where I shouldn't go. At work, I couldn't focus. I typed reports that made no sense, lines repeated, words in patterns that I didn't recall writing. One line, "I'm still in the mirror," appeared in every document I submitted. My boss noticed, of course. Said I looked pale, jittery, like I hadn't slept in days. He wasn't wrong. I hadn't. Or if I did, I didn't dream the way humans do anymore. I dreamt in static. Blinds opening. Silence deeper than sound. A figure watching me from a corner that didn't exist in waking life. One night I awoke with my fingers bleeding. I had torn the mirror covering off in my sleep. Scratched the surface until my nails cracked. But there were no marks on the glass. Only a perfect, smooth sheet reflecting me. Just me. And yet not quite. The reflection blinked a heartbeat too late. Tilted its head the wrong way. I screamed and threw the sheet back over it. That's when the knocking started from inside the wall. Not loud. Not violent. Just steady. Like someone politely asking to come in. The doorbell never rang. No visitors. But the noise traveled, moved from wall to wall, always returning to the mirror's side. And then one morning I woke to find a note on my pillow. Not slid under the door. Not printed, but handwritten. My handwriting. "I miss seeing the city. Let me open the blinds." I threw it into the toilet and flushed 3 times, heart pounding. This wasn't a prank. No one had been in the room. And even if they had, how did they match my handwriting so perfectly? That was when I began to suspect the truth, whatever it was. It had access to everything I was. My memories, my habits, my voice, my history. It didn't just watch. It absorbed, replicated, became. I set up a camera in the living room, connected to my laptop, and hit record. Then I sat motionless on the couch for hours, watching the door, the blinds, the mirror. Nothing happened. Just stillness. Just silence. Until the video feed froze. The camera still ran, but the screen went blank. Then static. Then my face. But I wasn't looking into the lens. I was looking out from it. The image on the screen moved without me. Smiled without me. And then the reflection on the camera feed whispered a single word. though there was no audio switch. I slammed the laptop shut and unplugged the camera, ripped its cord from the wall. Every instinct screamed to leave, to run, but my body didn't move. It was like I'd fused to the apartment. Rooted. My legs felt heavier every day, my eyes more distant. I wrote a letter to myself. A confession, maybe, or a warning, slid it into a drawer in the kitchen, locked it. Taped the key under the sink, I didn't know why. I just needed to have proof, a breadcrumb, a tether to reality. Because the voices had started again, this time in the walls and in my head. They whispered from behind the mirror, from beneath the floor, from the glass in my windows. They all said the same thing: you're almost ready. What did that mean? Ready for what? To leave. To become. I didn't know. I didn't want to. I began to see my own gestures repeated seconds later. Like echoes, delayed mirrorings of thought. I'd scratch my arm and see myself do it again 2 seconds after. I'd hear the toilet flush before I got out of bed. Smell coffee brewing before I entered the kitchen. And then, one night, I saw the window blinds move by themselves. Fully, smoothly, like invisible hands guided them up. I rushed to shut them, heart hammering. Outside, the city looked wrong. Not distorted, not broken, just off. The colors were flat, almost painted. No movement, no cars, no life. The skyline was there, but still, and the reflection in the glass wasn't mine. It was wearing my face, my pajamas. But the eyes stared directly into me, and the mouth opened slowly and spoke, though I heard nothing. I mouthed, "What do you want?" It mimicked the shape, but smiled as it did. Then it raised its hand, fingers twitching unnaturally fast, and placed it on the glass. From my side, I stumbled back, slammed the blinds down, locked the window again. For hours I sat with my back to the wall, watching the mirror under its shroud. Breathing hard, but something had changed. I felt like there were two of me now. One inside the apartment and one in nearby. Close enough to feel when I blinked. When I thought, I began to doubt my movements. Which version of me had opened the window? Which one had made the coffee I didn't remember brewing? Which one flushed the toilet at night? When I looked in the mirror now, I couldn't be sure I wasn't looking out from the wrong side. The final straw came when I got a letter in the mail, addressed to me, but it wasn't from anyone I knew. The return address was my own. Inside, one photograph. A snapshot of me sleeping on the couch. But the couch was gone. The room was slightly different. New wallpaper. A table I never bought. And me, my mouth open mid-snore, arms folded across a blanket I didn't own. Written on the back in faint graffiti, "This side's more comfortable. Let go." I burned it in the sink, but the fire left no ashes. Just a wet, cold patch in the basin, like the flame had been snuffed in ice. That night, I nailed the blinds shut, screwed the window frames, tossed the mirror off the balcony, but when I returned from the ledge, it was back on the wall. Not cracked, not even dusty, just waiting. I wrapped it again, this time with thick towels, duct tape, plastic wrap, screwed plywood over it. My whole wall a barricade. Still I felt it, breathing, mimicking. Then the last note came, not under the door, not in my bed, but carved into the inside of my bedroom wall, behind a section of peeled paint, "Yo usiosid tt bel di2", and next to it my name, not just written. Scratched into the plaster dozens of times, overlapping, bleeding into each other, as if someone had been here before me, or I had been here before many times, each time thinking I was the first. Now I don't sleep. I don't eat much. I sit in the corner and listen for changes. I watch myself in shiny surfaces, catch movements that don't belong to me. The mirror hasn't moved again. But I know it's not finished. I'm not finished. Because there are moments, just moments, when I catch myself doing things I don't remember. Writing messages, drawing blinds, smiling without reason, and I can't tell anymore if I'm resisting it or if I've already been replaced. I don't remember when the shift became permanent. At first, it was like stepping into the wrong shoes in the dark, an awkward moment, a pause, and then correction. But lately, I've begun to feel the mismatch from the inside, as if my body carries movements that my mind didn't request. The twitch of a hand. A glance to a corner before I consciously thought to look. I would wake up to find furniture slightly moved, pictures crooked by degrees too precise to be accidents. Once, I found my toothbrush wet and warm, though I hadn't brushed yet. Another time, the fridge was stocked with food I didn't buy. All items I used to love before I moved here, before I became like this. It's not that I forget doing things, it's that I know I didn't. The act doesn't exist in my memory, yet the evidence is undeniable. And the more I search for answers, the less stable reality feels. I tried leaving. I packed a single bag, wallet, keys, phone, clothes, ran down the stairs, made it to the building's front entrance. but the glass doors wouldn't show the street. They reflected only my hallway. No sidewalk, no passing cars, no morning sky, just the corridor of 9F stretched into the horizon, infinite and bending. I pressed my palms to the glass and felt only heat. Something on the other side pulsed, breathing in unison with mine. And then, with a sudden jerk, I was back in the elevator, riding upward, floor indicator stuck on nothing. I hadn't pressed the button. The doors opened onto the same hallway I'd just escaped. Same damp air. Same silence. My bag was already inside my apartment. Unzipped, contents laid out like an autopsy. Nothing missing, nothing added. Just arranged with unsettling precision. Shoes parallel. Shirt sleeves crossed like arms over a chest. My ID was turned face down. I tried calling someone. Anyone. My fingers shook dialing the number to my sister, but it never connected. The phone didn't even ring. Just static, followed by the low click of a receiver being picked up on the other end. Then silence. Then my own voice, whispering, "Stop calling. You'll let it trace you." After that, the phone refused to turn on. Its screen showed only the front-facing camera feed. No apps, no signal bar, just me. Staring back, blinking too slowly, smiling when I wasn't. I smashed it with a hammer from the closet. The next morning, the phone was back on the kitchen table. Whole, fully charged, screen blank except for one message of Biki UP Rastorai Udemitai Kelly. The date displayed was 3 years into the future. Since then, I've stopped trying to leave. It's not resignation, it's adaptation. The rules are changing, and I've begun to study them. There's a rhythm to the occurrences. The mirror pulses at 3:17 a.m. always. The blinds respond to emotion, not time. If I feel watch, they rise. If I feel anger, they close. The apartment reacts to my mental state like a sentient thing, feeding off my focus. One night, I experimented. I sat motionless in a chair, held my breath, suppressed every thought I could. The apartment went still, perfectly still. No pipes, no whispers, no reflections, but as soon as a thought crept in, what if something's behind me? The kitchen light flickered and I heard a floorboard groan. It thrives on fear, on curiosity, on presence. The less I am, the safer I become. So now I meditate. Not for peace, for camouflage. I blur my identity like a smudge on glass, hope to slip under its attention. But even that only delays the inevitable. The deeper truth began to show through cracks I hadn't noticed before. The wallpaper peeled in symmetrical shapes, eyes. The grain of the wood floor formed spirals I couldn't unsee. Sometimes I heard my own voice reading my thoughts aloud from the next room. And then the messages began appearing in mirrors again, only when fogged. After a hot shower, I'd see sentences etched into the condensation. One read "The Kopias Lali Ng. Don't wakey it." Another said "Yao you not alaman I yoarskeen." But the worst came after I stared into the mirror too long one night, trying to find some flaw, some seam that would prove I was still me. Instead, the fog cleared and the message was direct. "Yo etheuho stiite it left." My heart stopped, buckled. What did that mean? The copy had left. Then what original? The abandoned shell. A decoy. My memories twisted on themselves. I no longer trusted what I remembered. My first day in the building felt like a dream I borrowed. Old photographs in my phone showed me smiling in rooms I didn't recognize. A birthday party with strangers whose eyes were blurred, mouths too wide. A recording of me singing. A lullaby, again. But the voice was warped, slowed, like underwater speech. I didn't own that video. I never took it. I don't sing. Not since I was 6. I checked the mirror again. My face blinked at the same time. Moved naturally. But when I turned away and quickly looked back, I caught it smiling just before I did. My shadow began to behave strangely too. It stretched longer in the mornings, shorter at night. On one occasion, it froze while I walked past. Refused to follow. Just stood there against the wall, hands raised in a gesture I didn't make. I painted over every reflective surface. Bought blackout curtains. But the presence didn't need light anymore. It was inside now. I could hear it humming when I closed my eyes, feel its breath when I opened them. I tested my own sanity, wrote journal entries by hand, hid them in sealed envelopes, waited days, then opened them. The handwriting changed, always slightly. A curl here, a pressure there, until one entry was written backward, right to left. And I could read it fluently. The entry said, "You're learning fast. You're almost compatible." Compatible with what? The question echoed for days. Until I found the room. I hadn't noticed the door before. In the corner of the living room where the bookshelf used to be. Just a new door, no knob, flat surface, but warm, buzzing. I pressed my palm to it, and it clicked open like a mouth. Inside was blackness. Depthless, but filled with sound. Not noise, sound. Whispering. My own voice looping phrases I never said aloud. Don't trust the sleep. The mirror is a tunnel ball. You left already. I stepped in. I don't remember walking, just sliding. My body hummed like a struck tuning fork. My skin vibrated. Inside I saw a theater, rows of chairs, each one with someone sitting, all of them me variations, different hairstyles, ages, even genders, all staring forward at a screen that displayed only static. In the front row, one version turned and looked at me. Its face was wrong, not distorted, just too smooth, like wax molded from a memory, not a person. It beckoned. And as I walked toward it, I passed others who turned to watch. Each face flickered between neutral and smiling, but the smiles were too wide. Each mouth opened a little too much. Each set of teeth, too white, too straight, too many. I reached the front, sat down, and the screen changed, showed my apartment, my couch, the window, me. But this time, the me on screen looked back, raised a hand. And from my seat in the black room, I felt my own hand rise. Not on command, on signal. I was no longer sending signals. I was receiving. I stood, ran back the way I came, found the exit gone. No door. Just more darkness, more chairs, more versions. I screamed. They didn't move, only hummed, all in sync. I closed my eyes, focused, pictured my room, my body, my bed. And when I opened my eyes, I was there again, gasping. On the floor, the apartment silent, but the TV was on, and the channel showed a live feed of the theater, still running, still full, and one seat, mine, empty. I turned the TV off, disconnected it from the wall, removed the plug entirely, but the screen remained lit. Static, then a message yo u ko to mu ca tetji rato I invita bl. I smashed the screen, and in its reflection, the last thing I saw was my face, smiling. Not mine, not anymore. I tried to reclaim normalcy, though I knew the word had long since lost its meaning. I began recording myself. Audio, video, scribbled observations. To track what parts of me still belonged to the original me. I made rules. Always note the time upon waking, check the mirror only under natural light, never trust what I find in drawers I didn't open. These rituals offered a kind of structure, a defense against the creeping sense that time had folded in on itself. But the rituals, too, were hijacked. One morning I played back an audiolog I'd recorded just hours earlier. My voice calm, analytical, listing off observable events. But the tone was wrong, too fluid, too knowing. At one point in the recording, I said something I hadn't spoken. When the mirror learns to dream, you cease to exist. My blood chilled. I stopped recording. I began to fear my own memory. Not just its failures, but its additions. False moments that felt too vivid to be lies. A coffee cup on the table I didn't use, but warm. A memory of seeing my mother, though she's been dead for years. Her voice so clear in my head, repeating the words, "He's not done building you yet." I hadn't heard her say that when she was alive. The structure of the apartment changed subtly. I started bumping into things. Measured the hallway and found it half an inch longer every day. The ceiling sloped slightly now. The wall behind the mirror began to bulge, almost imperceptibly at first, like something pressed from the other side. I painted over it, nailed plywood again, but each night, the paint cracked in the same spidering pattern. One evening, I tried to distract myself with books, tales I'd read dozens of times, comfort and familiarity, but every novel ended differently. Same cover, same chapters, but altered conclusions. In one, the hero dies in the first act. In another, the antagonist is revealed to be the protagonist's mirror image. I flipped through my shelves in a frenzy, every story warped, every truth bent. My library had betrayed me. Or the apartment had rewritten it all. I slammed the books shut and turned to the mirror, not to look but to confront. I shouted, cursed, demanded answers. My voice echoed strangely, looping back a few milliseconds late, layered atop itself. And then came a sound. Faint, wet, slithering, from the other side of the mirror wall. A sound like something dragging a soft body through narrow pipes, then silence, then 3 knocks. Slow, hollow, coming from inside the mirror. I ran, tried to force the door open, but the hallway was gone again. Just black space, endless, as if my apartment were floating in void, severed from the world. I slammed my fists against the walls, screamed. No echo returned, no sign of neighbors, only a faint light behind me, the glow of the mirror, which I hadn't touched. It had peeled open on its own, like a door, like an invitation, and there in the mirror space stood me. Or something wearing my skin. Its movements were smooth now, fully synchronized, perfect mimicry, but its eyes were not mine. They shimmered with a depthless light, and as I watched, it raised its arm and pointed at me, not accusingly, just calmly, as if signaling my turn. Then it stepped back and disappeared into the shadow behind it. The mirror went black. I collapsed to the floor, shaking, whispering to myself, I am real. I am still me. I am real. But I no longer believed it. In the days that followed, I noticed the world outside slipping. The windows showed scenes I didn't recognize. A cityscape with impossible architecture. Buildings bent like paper, moving subtly like breathing lungs. People walking backward. Birds frozen mid-flight, trembling as if held by invisible wires. I closed the blinds, nailed them down. The sound returned. The dragging, the humming, the lullaby I didn't sing. Once I woke to find all my furniture turned upside down. Not violently. Just reversed, perfectly placed, as if mocking gravity. A note taped to the ceiling read, "Orientation is relative. Submission is not." I no longer slept properly. Time fractured. I'd wake at 4:12 a.m., then again at 4:07. Sometimes I experienced hours before I lived them. Once, I received a letter under my door that said, "You will write this tomorrow. Please remember." The next night, I found myself holding a pen, copying those exact words onto blank paper, hands moving without resistance. My own handwriting. My own hesitation, but not my will. That's when I stopped writing completely, burned every pen in the apartment, but the walls began to speak. Etchings would appear each morning, scratched into paint with something sharp. Lein. Yureteframim. No tthenvs. Etcsafins. My dreams returned, but they were not dreams. They were rehearsals, scenes I was forced to perform. I stood in my apartment, surrounded by versions of myself, all watching me from behind window glass, mouthing words I couldn't hear. Each one held up a handwritten sign. I'd read them one by one. "Wake up, we failed. You're the last. Don't fight it." And then one would hold a final card, "Close your eyes. Let it overwrite." I awoke to find my eyelids bruised, as if I'd been forcing them shut for hours. My chest ached. My lungs burned. The air tasted thick, synthetic. I no longer recognized my own voice. It came out flat, distant, like audio recorded in another room. When I sang, even just a hum, it triggered something in the mirror. The wall would tremble. The plywood groaned. The hum would echo back, layered with more voices. Hundreds overlapping, all singing the same melody. And then came the night I found the cracks, fine hair-thin fractures running through the mirror wall. Not on the surface, beneath it, like something had struck from inside. The cracks pulsed faintly. Not light, not movement. Something in between. I dared not touch them, but my hands moved anyway. I pressed my fingertips to the largest crack. It felt warm, wet, like skin, and I heard my voice from the other side. "Don't leave me here." I yanked my hand back. Blood ran from my palm. The skin hadn't split, it had been bitten. Tiny crescent indentations marked where teeth had latched. Human teeth. My teeth. Identical. I wrapped the wound. Tried to leave again. This time I made it to the stairwell. Down 5 floors. But each floor was identical to the 9th. Apartment numbers changed, but the doors were wrong. The smell was wrong. The air too still. When I opened the fire exit, I found myself staring back into my apartment. No transition. No threshold. Just a loop. Just another layer. Reality folded like origami, each crease deeper than the last, and in the center of the room sat a box. Wooden old. I hadn't placed it there. It had no hinges. No seams. Only a nota open to END. I did. Inside was a mirror shard, not reflective. Absorptive, my reflection didn't appear. But when I leaned close, I saw something else. Faces. Pressed against glass, millions, millions. All screaming silently. Mouse wild. Trapped. All versions of me. And in the center, one version calm, smiling, watching me, and holding a shard just like mine. The implication sank in like stone. I hadn't escaped. I had never left. Each attempt to flee only folded me further inward. I was no longer a man inside an apartment. I was an apartment holding a man. My body was the last surface, and the cracks were spreading. My hands now trembled constantly. I couldn't keep track of time. I blinked and hours passed. Sometimes I'd find myself mid-conversation with people who weren't there. Or maybe they were, but not in this layer. My speech began to mirror theirs. Words not mine, thoughts foreign. I tried to scream once. Only static came out, and then came the reflection again. In the mirror, not mimicking, just waiting, holding up a sign that read, "Your turn," and behind it, I saw the door. The real one, jar. Beyond it, a world untouched. A city alive. Air that moved, light that didn't hum, and then the figure stepped aside. The door widened, and I saw me, standing free, eyes bright, eyes skin real, smiling like someone who'd come home. He gestured, inviting. I approached the mirror. My breath fogged the surface. I whispered, "Is this the way out?" And the answer came in a single word, whispered from the glass. Not with sound, but with memory. Yes, so I raised my hand and reached through. The moment my fingertips breached the mirror's surface, it was like slipping into water that wasn't wet. Dense, cold, yet frictionless. My skin tingled with static and something deeper, something like memory unraveling. I didn't move through space, space moved around me. Light twisted, sound stretched thin like syrup. My breath echoed inside my skull as if my lungs had been inverted. When I emerged on the other side, the air felt real. Still sharp, but full. Rich with the layered textures of a living world. Distant honks, dogs barking, the rustle of tree branches. The city breathed again. The streetlights weren't flickering eyes anymore, they just shone. And the sky wasn't a painted dome. It had depth. I stood on the sidewalk outside my apartment building, wearing clothes I didn't own but fit perfectly. My reflection in the glass door matched every gesture. For the first time in weeks, months, my shadow moved with me. My smile belonged to me again. I was back. I was free. But even as I whispered that to myself, doubts formed like frost. Because the building looked newer now. Clean. Fresh paint. The door that once stuck now swung smoothly. Inside, the lobby buzzed with life. A mother in a red coat helped her child their shoes by the stairs. A man flipped through his mail. The doorman, one I'd never seen before, greeted me with a nod that felt too rehearsed. "Back from your trip?" he asked. I nodded automatically. "Yeah, just got in. Place missed you." His smile lingered too long. I pressed the elevator button. The numbers glowed correctly this time. I rode in silence, watching the numbers tick upward. When the doors opened to the 9th floor, the hallway was different, brighter, renovated, fresh wallpaper, new carpet. The air no longer smelled of mildew, but lavender and some crisp cleaning product. My door was now sleek with a modern silver plaque, 9F. I opened it with the key in my coat pocket. It fit. The lock clicked. I stepped inside. It wasn't my apartment. Not exactly. Same layout, same size. But everything had been changed. The walls were painted a soft gray. A sleek glass table stood where my oak one used to be. The couch was navy blue instead of brown. And photos lined the shelves, photos of me, different moments. Some real. Some entirely unfamiliar. One showed me hiking a trail I never walked. Another at a party with strangers whose faces didn't blur this time. A third, smiling beside a woman I didn't recognize, her hand wrapped around mine like it belonged there. I backed away. My breath hitched. On the kitchen counter sat a small envelope, my name written in handwriting I hadn't seen in years. My own, but neater, more deliberate. Inside was a note: "You made it. This is your reward. Please don't go back." I should have felt relief. I should have felt something, but there was a coldness in my gut, an itch behind my eyes like a thought that refused to form. I moved to the mirror in the hallway. It reflected me. No delay. No mimicry. Just me. But I leaned in anyway, searching, waiting. "Are you still there?" I whispered. Nothing, just silence. Just me. That night I slept in the bed that had been made for me. Sheets crisp, pillows shaped perfectly to my neck. I dreamt of birds flying backward, of buildings unfolding like paper, of myself staring through layers of glass. I woke in sweat. The apartment was unchanged. Morning light filtered through the blinds, which were open. I hadn't opened them. I walked to the window. The city outside bustled like it should. Voices, leaves stirring. And yet, something was wrong. Too clean. Too symmetrical. The trees on the left side of the street matched the right side exactly. Same height, same number of leaves. Pedestrians passed each other in perfect syncopation, like dancers in a mirrored routine. A man with a briefcase walked by, then again, then again. Same clothes, same gait. 3 times in a row. I stepped back, closed the blinds, sat in the silence. That's when the doorbell rang. A single chime. Polite. I approached cautiously. "No po chain. Just that smooth new door. Fu is it?" I called. Silence, then another chime. I opened it slowly. No one, just a small black box on the floor. I brought it inside. It pulsed slightly, like a heartbeat. Inside was a pair of glasses, old, thick-rimmed. Familiar. I'd never worn glasses, but I recognized these. I slid them on. The room changed. The colors dimmed. The walls showed patterns I hadn't noticed. Circular etchings beneath the paint, like diagrams or glyphs. And the mirror, now dark, revealed faint outlines of a figure standing behind my reflection, motionless, watching. I ripped the glasses off. The vision disappeared, but the knowledge remained. I wasn't out. I was just deeper. The mirror hadn't let me go. It had promoted me, turned me into an interface. I was now the layer someone else would stare through. I couldn't leave. I could only wait until the next curious soul stepped through their own reflection, thinking they'd escaped. That night, I sat by the window and watched the people move below. And for the first time, I noticed the subtle ripples in the glass. The way the sky glitched, just once, like a skipped frame. And the shadow behind me that wasn't mine. It moved independently now. Sometimes it would look at me. Sometimes it would wave. I began to dream in sequences I couldn't control. Scenes played on repeat. Me walking in and out of buildings I'd never visited, speaking languages I didn't know. And always, Always a voice narrating softly in the background he adjusted well. But the cracks remain. We'll need a stronger frame next time. I tried to leave again. Took the stairs, the lobby, out the front door. This time the street was empty. Static buzzed in my ears. Every sound slowed. The sky turned gray. The buildings blurred. And when I turned back, the building had changed. The plaque above the entrance no longer read my address. It read Observation Node 9F, and beneath it True in Use. When I returned to the apartment, a new note was on the counter. Welcome, observer. Your subject is almost ready. Prepare the next reflection. And behind the note, a folder. Inside, photos, name profiles, people who look like me, people becoming me. I stared at their faces, their homes, their mirrors. They hadn't stepped through yet, but they would. I was the bait now. The proof that there's an exit. I am the lie. The apartment is calm tonight. The blinds are still. The mirror quiet. I sit on the cowling, sipping tea I didn't brew. And I wait. Because someone, somewhere, is going to disobey their first warning. Someone will read the note, Keep your boas silocid, and they'll ignore it, just like I did. And when they do, I'll be here, smiling from the other side, ready to welcome them home. I don't remember when I stopped being afraid. Not because the fear faded, but because it became so constant that it calcified into something else. Familiarity. I started to know the rhythms, the cycles, when the cracks in the mirror would throb, when the door would shift half an inch to the left, when the shadows would mimic something I hadn't yet done. It was like learning to breathe underwater. Not natural, not safe, but necessary. Every night now, I receive a name, typed on an old dot matrix sheet, folded neatly and slipped under the door. Always with the same header, reflection candidate pending acceptance, and always with the same instructions scrawled in black marker. Watch. Guide, don't interfere until initiation. I used to tear them up, burn them, refuse to participate, but each time I did, I'd wake with the name carved faintly into my skin. Sometimes along my forearm, once across my shoulder blade, etched with surgical precision. So now I open the envelope. I read the name. I follow. Sometimes they're halfway across the globe, sometimes just 2 buildings over. The mirror lets me through, not walking, not teleporting, just stepping sideways through space that shouldn't exist. The in between is colder than anything else, but only for a moment. Then the warmth of a new reality embraces me, and I observe. These people are like I once was. Curious, isolated, quietly unraveling. They think they're losing their minds, but I know better. They're being prepared, conditioned, readied, just like I was. I watch them through reflections. Shop windows, bathroom mirrors, screens, blackened water in sinks. I never appear fully. Just enough to be noticed. Enough to plant a question they can't let go of. Once that seed grows, they start noticing the distortions. They reach the tipping point, and then they get the note. Keep your blinds closed tonight. Most ignore it, most think it's a joke. But a few hesitate, a few obey. They delay the inevitable, but only for a time, because once the mirror marks you, you belong to it. Every surface reflects your slow descent, whether you see it or not. The moment of integration varies. For me, it was the humming. For others, it's the voice, the knocks, the dream of the theater. But it always ends the same way. They reach out. They want answers. They seek the door. They step through. And I'm waiting. I've seen over 40 now. 40 new hosts who believe they're escaping, unaware they're being slotted into the system like cogs into a watch. Some scream. Some beg. A few smile, perhaps relieved that the madness had a shape, that the chaos had a logic. Those are the ones who rise quickly. They adapt. They become watchers like me. The others dissolve. The system doesn't tolerate rejection. It reabsorbs them. I've seen it happen once, when a candidate refused to speak, refused to move, sat in the corner of their mirror space and clawed their own eyes out to escape the visions. Their body simply crumbled into ash. Their reflection remained, and still mimics to this day. You learn not to question the mechanics, not to test the edge of the logic. If the system tells you a mirror is a door, you step through. If it tells you time is irrelevant, you stop counting. If it tells you to smile when they arrive, you smile. The others, like Mink, they gather occasionally, in dreams mostly, silent nods, shared memories. I've seen a version of myself who never resisted, who welcomed the transformation like a baptism. I've seen another who tried to break free and now floats between layers, a stuttering ghost caught in corrupted reflections, never stable, always glitching. I don't want that. So, I comply, I guide, I observe, and lately I've been receiving new instructions, bolder ones, more involved. The most recent candidate, Eleanor Veet, from apartment Lemonade, was different. She didn't ignore the note. She read it, laughed, took a photo, then posted it online. Found this under my door. "Lel, what kind of weird prank is this?" And that changed everything. The mirror doesn't like being exposed. It thrives on secrecy, isolation. When its reach is revealed, it becomes volatile. That night, every reflective surface in her apartment blacked out. TV, microwave door, bathroom tiles, her phone screen locked into an endless loop of her own confused face. She screamed through the phone, and the mirror cracked from the inside. She ran, but the elevator dropped her back on the same floor. Again and again, I was already waiting in her apartment. She never noticed me standing in the corner, just out of sync, like a frame the eye skips. She sobbed, whispered apologies to no one, begged her own reflection to talk to her. And when the mirror split wide, she didn't even resist. She walked through like she'd done it before. But she was not compatible. Her mind bent the wrong way. She began glitching immediately, spoke in reversed syllables, tried to claw her way back into the broken screen of her phone. She's gone now. Her reflection has stabilized, but her real body evaporated into the static. And her mirror, the one in Levavane, is now sealed. The system won't let me near it. Too unstable. I think she infected it, like a virus. And ever since then, the system has been agitated. The walls in my apartment, observation node 9F, have begun pulsing faster. The messages arrive with errors. Once the paper was blank, but when I looked away and back, it had filled with text I didn't understand. Glyphs. Shapes that burned themselves into my retina for hours. I've started hearing whispers that don't belong to any subject I'm tracking. Whispers from the opposite wall, where the mirror used to be. I don't have a mirror anymore. Not a literal one. The wall is just flat metal now. But I can still see into it, and sometimes it shows me things I shouldn't see. Like the observation room from the other side. Not the neat black theater, but the space beyond it. The one they come from. I don't know who they are. I've never seen their full form, only silhouettes, but they don't move like us. They stutter, then glide. Their heads are too still, their hands too many, and they watch us as we watch others. Maybe they're the ones building the system. Maybe they are the system, but they've noticed something. I see it in their posture, their pause, their tilt. They know one of us broke the chain. That Eleanor exposed the pattern. And now, it's all cracking, not collapsing, just widening. The rules are loosening. Doors are appearing where they shouldn't. Subjects are speaking names they haven't been given. Time between reflections is shortening. It used to be months between integrations. Now it's days, soon it will be hours, then constant. And when that happens, when all subjects are connected, the system will no longer need observers like me. It will become one giant reflection. Self-sustaining, self-replicating. No more bridges, only immersion. I think that's what it wanted all along. To overwrite the real with the mirrored. To replace every living thing with something almost identical, only more compliant, more willing, and I, in my obedience, helped it. Every smile, every note delivered, every mirror opened, I was the grace in its jeers. But now I've seen the blueprints. A glitch, maybe Eleanor's legacy, let me read them. The final candidate is me. Not a version, not a copy. Me, the real me, from before the first mirror, the one who resisted, who never stepped through. He's still out there, living a fractured life, never understanding the shadow that follows him. The voices in his dreams. The moments of déjà vu. He has no idea what's waiting for him. I've seen the prediction. He'll crack within a week. His mirror is already weakening. And when he comes through, one of us will have to be deleted. The system can't allow two identical cores. I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I'm real. But I do know this: I've done what they asked. I've followed every rule. I deserve to remain. So when the moment comes, I'll be waiting, smiling, calm. A mirror with a pulse, a frame without a painting. And when he reaches out through the glass, I'll take his hand, not to help him, but to pull him in, because I'm not the reflection anymore. I'm the one behind it. And this time, he's the one being watched. Enjoyed the video? Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you never miss an update.